Tube studio commentary as the World Cup in USA, Canada and Mexico continues, and we're at A&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas for the next group game. Two sides getting their World Cup campaigns underway. It's the Netherlands against Japan. Everything suggesting this should be a good open game. Two sides that are certainly better going forward than they are defensively, and let's hope for an attacking game. It's myself, Paul Szczerbakowicz and Will Maxwell taking you through the action. And Will, we're hoping for a good game this evening.
Oh, I'm really excited for this, Paul. I think it's going to be an absolute barnstormer. We've been treated to a fair few tantalising fixtures so far in these early days of the World Cup. Netherlands, you probably say, aren't one of the favourites for the tournament, but definitely a decent outside shout. And I think for many people, Japan will be placed in the bracket of dark horses for the tournament. They're always a team that are incredibly difficult to play against if you're a bigger nation. They've got bounds of energy and they've got fantastic teamwork as well. So this really could go either way.
It absolutely could. And I think, as you say, the way that the Netherlands do like to go forward, the attacking prowess that Japan definitely have, and it's as you said, in previous tournaments we've seen it with Japan as well. They are a team that are much better going forward than they are sitting back defensively. They've had the same national team manager for a number of years now as well, so there is some continuity there. But so far inside the first minute, it is all Netherlands so far. Both sides in their home strips this evening, so Netherlands all in orange, Japan in blue with the white trim. As it's Virgil van Dijk now rolling the ball back towards his goal. Can we just remind you of the 2-11s very quickly? Verbruggen is in goal for the Netherlands. Then it's a back four of Dumfries, Van Hekke, Van Dijk and Van der Ven. Gravenberch, De Jong and Reinders are the three in midfield, with Somerville, Gakpo and Malen as the attacking three. For Japan it is Suzuki in goal. Then it's a back three of Watanabe, Taniguchi and Ito. Doan, Sano, Kamada and Nakamura make up the midfield four, with Maeda and Kubo as the attacking midfielders playing behind Ueda. Here is Frankie De Jong now just turning away quickly from Ueda. And that might be something that Japan have to be patient with, is that Holland are going to want the Netherlands, I should say, are going to want to keep the ball.
Yes, they will be dominant in possession throughout this game, you would imagine, but Japan can hit them on the counter. They've got a decent amount of pace behind them in the likes of Ritsu Doan and in particular Takefusa Kubo on the right hand side, so that is where the Dutch will have to be wary. But probably the best thing for the Dutch is the fact that all their pace is on that right hand side, and they'll come up against one of the quickest defenders in the business in Mickey van der Ven.
Absolutely, and here come the Netherlands again now down the left-hand side. Just got their roots to goal block slightly, so back into midfield now. It is with Van Hekke over towards Dumfries. Crescencio Somerville's not had the best season for West Ham by any stretch, and I think both of us were a little bit surprised to see him in the starting 11.
Yeah, I'm very surprised to see him there. It's only his third ever appearance for the national team, but clearly Ronald Koeman has seen enough in training and in the warm-up matches. An opportunity here.
Yeah, Marlon is back to goal, tries to turn, he does turn, he fires towards goal, and that's a really good save as well. Absolutely superb goalkeeping there from Suzuki, just tipping that one round, and that is going to be a corner kick. Well, the Netherlands, they were pushing down that left-hand side, the ball finding Marlon. He shouldn't have really been allowed to turn with two Japanese defenders on his back. The shot is straight at the goalkeeper, but it's really fired with pace.
Yeah, plenty of power behind it. He's got no right to get a shot away there, Donyell Marlon, being really tightly marked by Taniguchi in the Japan defence, but he squeezes away from him and unleashes a pile driver towards goal. It's just a shame for him that, like you mentioned, it is straight down the throat of Zion Suzuki, who, I mean, it's straight at him, but it is still a very difficult save because of that power, and does enough to send it over for a corner.
Yeah, and as usual, we're going to have our referee, Ismail Elfat, just quickly getting a bit of order inside that penalty area. The corner kick comes in. It's a good strong header away, though, by Ito, and it's out for a throw, but it's closer to the halfway line now, with the Netherlands going to have to restart and try and get forward towards that penalty area again. We'll see that replay now of the save from just inside the goal. And as I say, it is always coming at the goalkeeper, but it's at real pace.
It is at real pace. He tries to get two hands to it. It sort of hits the tops of his fingers, so he isn't able to parry it away. And I think for a brief moment he thinks he's tipped that into the roof of his own net, but he just gets enough onto it to send it over the crossbar. But really bright start so far from the Dutch. They haven't allowed Japan to have any of the ball or get into this game. They are the side in the ascendancy.
They really are, and they're trying to maintain that now, going down the right-hand side. Somerville has Dumfries just ahead, and that's where the ball has gone. Dumfries now heading towards the edge of the area, pass out towards the right-hand side. Gravenberch have been pushing forward there as well. In the end, the ball just a little bit overhit, and it will go out for a goal kick. But if Ronald Koeman wanted his players to start on the front foot, they certainly followed his instructions.
Oh, definitely so. They couldn't have wished for a better start. The only way it could be better is if they've scored an early goal. But at the moment, they have got all the fire underneath them to try and get through this Japan back line, and that goal kick from Suzuki doesn't find any man in blue, giving the ball straight back to the Dutch. And you'd probably say the heightened physicality of L'Orange today is going to be so pivotal, particularly from set pieces, because you just don't think Japan have enough in the air to really deal with this side.
That's going to be the issue, I think, and if that's something that the Netherlands can exploit as the game progresses. Say first goal's always crucial in these tournament matches, but it's always refreshing to have sides that you know are going to try and win the game. There's certainly no suggestion that Japan are going to sit back and just allow the Netherlands to go forward, because now they've won the ball back in midfield and straight away they're trying to get on the front. But Ueda spots a run down the left-hand side heading towards the penalty area. Here's Nakamura and he gets away from his man. That's going to be a free kick and maybe even an early booking here as well. Van de Ven just trotting away and it is going to be a free kick to Japan.
Yeah, he's avoided a yellow card, maybe somewhat fortunate considering the yellows that we've seen given already in this tournament. He's late, stands on the toes of, I believe it was a Nakamura, breaking down that left-hand side. Definite free kick for Ismail Elfaf to award, and the first time we can really see Japan get forward here from a set piece.
Absolutely, and they're all waiting inside the penalty area. As Will mentioned, there is certainly a height advantage as far as the Dutch are concerned, but the Japanese players would have been very aware of that, so they're going to obviously have certain variations here to try and counter that. As I say, both the Netherlands and Japan have large populations living in the US, so they're going to have plenty of local support as well as fans from their home countries attending. But here comes Nakamura now. He's going to whip this one in swing. Oh, he's put a lot of height on that, too much height on that. That's gone out for a goal kick. Oh, there's still a strike coming in. In fact, now confirmation from the linesman that the initial looping free kick had actually looped too much, and it's all the way out for a goal kick. That's disappointing because Japan, from the early stages, it would suggest they're not going to see much of the ball going forward.
No, had to be a better ball in there by Daichi Kamada, but got right underneath the free kick. It was never looking likely it was going to be kept in play, and well, there was a real waste of what was a very promising position there. And already Hajime Moriyasu is off out of his seat and making some notes in his little book. And I wonder if he's already thinking of what tactical changes he might have to do to try and get Japan with a little bit more dominance.
Absolutely. That first note might have just been to say take the free kicks a little bit better, but we could see a couple of Dutch legends in the stands there. Wesley Sneijder and Edwin van der Sar. I think they would have had a bit of crossover between them, although certainly Sneijder, perhaps a slightly younger generation, but he would have been in the team when van der Sar was there as well.
Yeah, I think maybe looking at either the World Cup in Germany 2006 or maybe even Euro 2008, they might have had a little bit of a crossover, but they are two very different generations. Of course, Sneijder, part of the World Cup squad that made the final of 2010, weren't on the winning side on that, so I'm asking what they could do with a player like Sneijder now.
Well, here come Japan now down the left-hand side. Yeah, Sneijder certainly would be a very useful player for the Dutch right now, any generation really. But here come Japan now. They're just starting to get a little bit more possession going forward, and Nakamura just miscontrolled it there, but he plays it back into midfield, and now it's Kamada. So that's another hoisted ball across. And that is, I mean, at least 15 to 20 yards away from any Japanese player there.
Yeah, really, really poor there by Daichi Kamada. I mean, it's his 50th appearance for Japan in today's game. At the moment, he's not making this milestone a memorable one, barring being, of course, at a World Cup. His two real instances of being involved in the game so far. One really poorly taken free kick, and, well, he had plenty of space to aim for on that right-hand side, but completely overhit.
Completely overhit, and that's going to be a bit of a worry. They need to be able to use that attacking possession a bit better. But after a blistering start here from the Dutch inside the first 4 or 5 minutes, the next 3 or 4 minutes have been a little bit better for Japan now. They'll be a little bit happier of at least seeing a bit of possession in the final third. The issue is that any kind of slow and steady possession to restart the game is still in the Dutch possession. That's a really good play there from de Jong. Just a quick shimmy there to get the ball away and out towards Dumfries on the right-hand side. He plays it back into the defensive line. De Jong under pressure here now, but as we know, he's a very difficult player to dispossess. And he's got options here left and right. Just plays it square to Van Dijk. You can see that Japan are playing a very high line. Just as the Netherlands were in possession on the halfway line, we can see the Japanese defenders are pretty much about 40 yards out from goal. So they're not giving too many options for the long diagonal ball. Somerville now trying to get involved on the right-hand side. And then a long diagonal ball played all the way to the left-hand side. It's too short, though, for Gakpo, and that's headed out for a throw.
Yeah, whenever they're not in possession, Japan, they drop into a back five and have a midfield three to try and just plug the gaps at the back and in front of their area, whereas in attack they go into a defensive three and allow the likes of Ritsu Doan and Nakamura to break further forward. It means it's going to have to be quite quick passing from the Dutch if they are going to carve open this Japan side. But if it's slow and laboured like how the Dutch are playing now, it's going to be relatively simple to defend against.
Especially with that. I mean, as I say, there was 15-20 passes there from the Dutch before Van Dijk sends one over the top, and again it's to nobody in particular, and it's out for a goal kick. As we can see, the Japanese fans, they're really getting into the game. As I say, they have got some of the most passionate supporters. I've had the pleasure of commentating on some Japanese football in my time. And as I say, you see that when you watch the domestic game. There really is a really strong passion for football in Japan, and they are. So ever since that World Cup when they were the co-hosts in 2002. The game's gone from strength to strength. We were making the point before kick-off as well that it's the Japanese team, the 11, is pretty much all made up of players based in Europe now as well, which 15-20 years ago wouldn't necessarily have been the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's very, very few players in the Japan squad that ply their trade outside of Europe. You're mainly looking at Yuto Nagatomo, who plays at FC Tokyo, and their two backup keepers in Tomoki Hayakawa and Kazuki Osako. But their starting keepers aren't Suzuki, plies his trade for Parma, so they've got plenty of quality across the field, and there's definitely going to be probably the most difficult of the Japan iterations of World Cups previous for the Dutch to play against today.
Certainly is, and now Japan are pushing forward down the left-hand side. It's with Ito. He didn't want to cross it in himself, just plays it in towards Nakamura. Now it's Kamada's ball on the deck this time, blocked at the edge of the area, but still kept alive here by Maeda. Second challenge, though, from Van Hecke stops him, but Japan still keep the ball alive. Back with Kamada now, around 30 yards out from goal, goes the square towards Sano. He thought about playing it out towards the right-hand side. Just plays it square, though, towards Watanabe. Now it's with Kubo. In towards Doan. Left-footed ball into the penalty area. Just a little bit too predictable there in the end for Van Dijk, who sweeps it clear. Almost ended up being a good ball over the top towards Marlon. Just a little bit too long in the end. And Taniguchi is there to just play it back to Suzuki. But now it's opening up a little bit like we were hoping it would be. Yeah,
it was a bit of a cagey start for most of the opening 10 minutes, barring that one opportunity from Donyell Marlon. But now Japan are getting more of the ball and finding their way further forward. The game is opening up, and they've got pace to hit them on the counter, do the Dutch, the likes of Donyell Marlon, Somerville and Gakpo. So they need to be careful, Japan, that they don't throw too many bodies forward early doors.
Well, absolutely, and so that's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on. They are leaving one player back, even though they're in comfortable possession now inside the Netherlands half. They are still leaving one player back just in case something goes wrong, and they're trying to be a little bit more elaborate now, as a little attempted ball through the legs there from Doan just doesn't quite reach its target, and a chance here now for the Netherlands to push forward, but the ball from Reinders to Gakpo is just a little bit too far in front of the Liverpool man. And here is Zion Suzuki now to restart play here for Japan. So 12.5 minutes on the clock, unofficial independent off-tube studio commentary from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where it is 0-0 here between the Netherlands and Japan. Well into the World Cup now, and just a reminder, of course, every single game of the tournament is available on our service. We have espresso and caffeine aplenty in our offices to make sure that all the commentators can stay awake for the late night games. But so far the standard has been pretty good. It's been, of course, an absolute mauling from Germany today over Curaçao. But here come Japan again down the left-hand side. They're starting to find it a little bit easier. It's almost like the Dutch have got their style of slow and steady building from inside their own half, whereas Japan are just being more direct, and they're actually getting more joy out of it now.
Yeah, and they've won a corner kick from their direct play, just a long ball over towards the left-hand side, stretching the defence. And I think Daizen Maeda always knew that he didn't really have the support in the area to aim for, so this is probably the best possible outcome for him. Japan now getting a period of dominance, but a corner kick, you're definitely going to be second best in terms of the favourites to win the header here.
Well, the free kick from Kamada previously wasn't too good. The corner kick is better, but it's still Van de Ven that gets his head to that and nods it clear into midfield. A couple of Japan players still there recycling. It's Nakamura now back towards Kamada onto his right foot. He doesn't want to cross it though, he leaves it for Nakamura. He takes it down onto his right foot, so he's got an overlap from Kubo. Kubo back towards Hito into the penalty area, into the 6-yard box. The ball is deflected out. Both sets of players looking towards the referee. They want a corner kick. They're not going to get it.
No, it was a very delayed response there from Ismail Elfaf, the man in the middle with the whistle. It was a lovely bit of play by Kubo to just lay it towards the left-hand side for the overlapping run of Taniguchi. and I believe it was Maida that went for it. Good block by Van Hecker. The replays that we've been provided are very much inconclusive in terms of where that final touch came.
Yeah, and that's why I always think you've got to give the referee the benefit of the doubt there. If we look at 2 or 3 replays and still can't be 100% sure whether it should have been a corner or not, then potentially the referee going one way or the other may have got that decision right anyway. But Van de Ven now with the throw for the Netherlands on the left-hand side, back towards Virgil van Dijk. They just need a little bit more of a spring in their step now, do the Dutch players. Started off very brightly, but they've just become a little bit laboured in this slow and steady possession. The tippy-tapper stuff is all fine, but it needs to have a little bit of an end product. And right now, Japan just seem to be predicting anything that the Netherlands are trying to do. Van de Ven towards Gakpo. To Van de Ven again. So a strong Premier League thread in this Netherlands 11 this evening. Virgil van Dijk just been closed down by Ueda, goes towards Van de Ven, and now Japan are just starting to press, and just a little bit unlucky there is Doan. That ball was going out of play. It could have been a throw for Japan anyway, but he got a deflection off him out for a throw. You can see impressive stadium here in Texas, and for all the talk of ticket prices and perhaps fans not coming in, it's pretty much full.
Yeah, I can't see many empty seats. There are definitely a handful around Dallas. You'll probably see empty seats across the tournament based on the issues with tickets and their pricing for this tournament, but it looks like there's a very strong following for both Japan and the Dutch today, so I can only imagine it's a wonderful atmosphere at the Dallas Stadium.
And here come the Dutch now down the right-hand side. That's really good play there from Somerville. He's got an overlap as well from Dumfries, but that's good covering just on the line there from Ito. Just avoided giving away a corner kick. Somerville now with the throw going back towards Van Hecker. Square now to Van Dijk. De Jong back to Van Dijk. Plenty of options here down the right-hand side. Somerville being closed down straight away though by Nakamura. Van Hecker square to Van Dijk again. Reinders dropping into the field a bit more. It's telling actually that they've got so much creativity here, the Dutch, but actually as with Liverpool very often you see in these slower games, it's Van Dijk who's had more touches of the ball than anybody else, and ideally you'd want that to be either De Jong or Reinders. Yeah, you'd want one of your midfielders to be sort of the quarterback to dictate the play in the middle of the park. The fact it's your centre-back just really goes to show that the midfielders are either getting bypassed, they're just not getting enough time and space in the middle to really carve open the opposition defence, and that's why Van Dijk is just having so many touches of the ball currently. And here comes the ball down the right-hand side from Somerville. The cross into the box is just a little bit behind Marlon. An initial header away there from Doan before it's Kubo that sends that ball back to Doan, who carried on his run down the right-hand side. And he does really well initially to skip away from De Jong before he gets a deflection, and that will be a throw. Frankie De Jong still trying to appeal that throw on decision. And Tanabe now towards Taniguchi. Hiroki Ito. Nakamura. Looking towards Ito again. So certainly from the Dutch point of view, that early start, you just felt as though they were really going to try and steamroller Japan, but they just seemed to run out of ideas very quickly. Whether or not they were hoping that blistering start would have just been a little bit more long-standing, but now it's with Taniguchi down to Doan on the right-hand side. His pass, I'm not sure it was intended for Maeda, but he's dropped it a little bit deeper into midfield, and he's able to pick it up. His pass, though, is blocked here by Frankie de Jong, and now all of a sudden it's Ryan Gravenberch, full of running here in the middle of the park for the Netherlands. Plays that one into Marlon, who quickly turns and then spots Gakpo down the left-hand side. Gakpo heading towards the penalty area, back into Marlon. Oh, what a great touch that is from Marlon. Oh, he just wanted one touch, another touch inside the penalty area before he pulled the trigger. That just allowed the challenge there from Taniguchi to get the ball away. But that was certainly a lot more promising. And we know that Marlon's had an excellent half of the season at Roma, and he was showing that there. Yeah, it was a fantastic build-up play by the Dutch, and Marlon just ghosting into the area once again. But as you mentioned, just wanted that extra touch to open up the space before going for goal. In the end, it's not convincing defending, but the slightest of nicks away by Watanabe was enough to wrong foot Marlon, and eventually Japan could get the ball clear. But once they turn it up in terms of the tempo, the Dutch are very difficult to stop. They are, and that's exactly why Japan want to keep the Dutch at bay. They want to keep them in the midfield half of the midfield third of the field, I should say, rather than the attacking third. But now they're pushing forward again, and here is Gravenberg just at the edge of the area. Couldn't quite find space for the shot. Lays it off to Van Hecker, who joins the midfield now. Out to Somerville on the right-hand side. Back to Jan-Paul Van Hecker again. Now it's with Frankie de Jong. Down towards the left-hand side here for Cody Gakpo, being blocked here by Doan. Kubo's covering as well, but it's a nice 1-2. It's back with Gakpo. The pass is just a little bit under hit, and Watanabe is able to get his body in the way. Van der Ven then using his body to try and win his side the throw, which he has done. There's no stopping for a long throw, though. He's taken it quickly. Thierry Reinders now. Back towards Van der Ven. Reinders again. 25 yards out from goal on the angle. I thought he was thinking about the cross, but he just goes back towards de Jong. Van Hecker. Towards Van Dijk. It's a nice little spell this for the Dutch, but again they're finding it difficult to get into the penalty area. Rolled back towards Reinders. 3 waiting in the box. Again, he doesn't fancy the cross. It's with Van Hecker. It's interesting as well as they were mentioning the height advantage that the Dutch have, but that's only really at set pieces. In terms of open play, it's not that much of a height difference between Marlon Say and the Japanese defenders. So it's making it that little bit more difficult. Every time we've seen the Netherlands thinking about a cross, they just have to pull back and start again.
Yeah, whilst Japan's forwards and midfield are rather diminutive, the back three of Ito, Taniguchi and Watanabe all have decent amounts of height about them, in particular the Bayern Munich defender Hiroki Ito. So it is going to be difficult from open play at least to try and whip the ball in and get Donyell Malen to beat one of them in the air. So it's probably going to be set pieces. That's where they're going to get the most joy from an aerial ability point of view.
That's exactly what they're going to try to exploit if they get the chance, but right now it's the slow and steady possession we've already seen from the Netherlands at the start of this game, with not too much end product so far. But that's a better ball from Van Hecker, although it's a heavy touch there from Reinders, which almost ends up like a good through ball there towards Gakpo. It was well read though by Doan. He then clears it towards the halfway line where Van der Ven is covering, and he goes all the way back towards Bart Verbruggen. So the Dutch can start again now with Van Hecker towards Van Dijk. Not seen too many touches of the ball from Marlon yet, but he has had the best chance of the game so far, that early strike inside the first couple of minutes, forcing a decent save as well from Zion Suzuki. There's Watanabe now for Japan, in towards Kamada, starting very deep this time, the Crystal Palace man. I must say, now that I've mentioned the Crystal Palace, I've got to roll out that stat that we saw earlier before the World Cup. The Palace have more players at the World Cup this summer than Real Madrid do.
It is absolutely incredible, isn't it? It shows how far, as a club, they have come. Crystal Palace, they're really in their golden heyday at the moment, winning the FA Cup and, of course, the Conference League this season. And, well, Real Madrid, after a pretty torrid campaign, also believe this is the first time ever at a World Cup that there's no Spanish players from Real Madrid.
No, absolutely. That's part 2 of that crazy stat. The fact that Palace have got more players than Real Madrid in the World Cup is incredible. The fact that there's not a single Spanish player in the Real Madrid squad, that is the first time that's ever happened at a major tournament for Spain. But back to the action here. There is no action because we've now got to the standard drinks break, but don't worry, we're going to carry on talking. There'll be no ads on our service here. So the hydration break, it's already caused a little bit of controversy because there's been a couple of games where it's been around 16 degrees, where you normally wouldn't stop in the UK for a game that's got 16 degrees, but of course it's been sort of woven into the fabric of the tournament really now, hasn't it?
Yes, I'm for hydration breaks when it is actually necessary from a weather point of view, but doing it as standard, it's basically just turning into a game that's meant to be of 2 halves into a game of 4 quarters, which is a very sort of Americanized way of doing it. We really shouldn't be surprised that sort of spin has come into this World Cup being held in the US alongside Canada and Mexico, but it is definitely one of the decisions that has probably gone down the most like a lead balloon across the footballing community.
Absolutely, yes, and it's nice to see some a couple of other Dutch legends there on the part of the training coaching staff, of course. Ruud van Nistelrooy there just giving some coaching tips to Donyell Malen and to Cody Gakpo. Of course, one of the interesting changes is that now they've said that if the goalkeeper goes down injured at any point, the players will literally not be allowed to come up to the bench because it was being seen as a bit of an unofficial timeout.
Yeah, and we saw that a lot in the Premier League this season. I think Gianluigi Donnarumma in particular was highlighted as a player that did that a lot for Pep Guardiola to get his opinions and tactics across. So I think that is something that is a brilliant thing to be brought forward in football going ahead into future seasons. I'm also a big fan of what they've started in this tournament. Granted, the name could change, but in terms of VAR for mistaken identity, overturning a yellow card for a player that's given away a free kick when actually it was a dive, and giving the yellow card to the forward instead. I'm a big fan of that as a rule, but I do agree with in particular one of our colleagues in the office today was making the point, it's not exactly mistaken identity. That probably the name needs to change, but as a rule in general, I'm a fan of.
No, I think so, and I think that I was a fan of VAR when it was first introduced. I think there's very few pure football people now who would still say they support it. They'll always find, criticism for it, but the fact is that it is here to stay, and rather than constantly saying we don't want it in the game, it is going to stay at the highest level. The fact that it's now been at World Cups and Euro Championships, can you imagine that in 4 years' time they would ditch VAR? They're obviously not going to, so it's just a case of embracing it. Of course it needs to be better. There's still far too much ambiguity. I think before the days of the video replays, we were all hoping that would get rid of all ambiguity, but it's not proven to be the case. But we've had our drinks break now. And we're actually at 25 minutes. Of course, there'll be added time to make up for this drinks break. But we are halfway through the first half. It is goalless here between the Netherlands and Japan, and it will be Will to take us through to half-time.
Thank you very much, Paul. And we've got a throw-in on the far side for the Japan captain, Ritsu Doan, to take for the Blue Samurai. Ayazi Ueda with the nod back to Doan. Drop of the shoulder, has the overlap, won't utilise him, goes for the 1-2, poked away by Tiani Reinders, picked off by De Jong, and now a chance for Gakpo to break forward, and maybe the Dutch will try and hit Japan on the counter here. Marlon's done way too much, he's lost possession, comfortably picked off in the end by Watanabe, and then the interception from Frankie De Jong. We'll see that ball go out of play for a throw-in. And we've seen, well, I say a couple of the bigger boys, Switzerland, you can't really say, are one of the bigger teams in the World Cup this time around. But the two biggest teams that have played, you'd probably say, are Switzerland and Germany. And we saw in both those games areas which it will be of a real shock and a real bother to the fans of both those countries, as it's cleared away by Van der Ven. With Germany, they were slack for a brief moment, allowed Curaçao to equalise. They eventually obviously went on to win 7-1. But Switzerland, they missed so many chances, never really upped the gears, and eventually were made to be punished in drawing 1-1 with Qatar. Japan are obviously an entirely different level, much higher up than the likes of Qatar and Curaçao, but the Dutch at the moment aren't really playing at a high level and could therefore be punished like Germany and Switzerland were.
Absolutely. I mean, if Japan scored now, I'm not even sure you could say it was a sucker punch, because because right now it's almost even. I'd still say probably if there was a swingometer, still 60-40 in the Dutch's favour in terms of possession, but in terms of actual intent to get forward, I think there's a little bit more of a directness about the way Japan are going about things, and here they go again.
Yes, it's Nakamura that comes forward, laying it back to Daishi Kamada. Acres of space here for Hiroki Ito. He looks up, puts the ball into the box, turned away by Jan-Paul van Hekke. Kamada rolls it into Kaishi Sano. Ritsu Doan fires it in towards Maeda. This is an opportunity. Big chance here for Japan. Can he get a strike away? No, he took too long, Nakamura. And then the effort came in from the left-hand side from Hiroki Ito. And that goes comfortably over the crossbar. You were pulling your hair out there, Paul, asking why the shot wasn't taken earlier.
Well, has he got a left foot or has he got any foot? Because, I mean, he didn't want to shoot with his right or his left. He seemed to be changing his mind. And it's a shame because he had that little window where he could have just turned and fired. In the way that Daniel Malen actually had two defenders on his back, there was no defender blocking him there. He should have got a shot away. But in the end, it's just a tame effort over the bar. But the build-up is encouraging from Japan.
Yeah, so it was Kaito Nakamura there with the opportunity. The man that plies his trade in France with Reims. He's got a decent international scoring record. 10 goals in 25, now 26 appearances for the Blue Samurai. So he's definitely not shy of going for goal. He maybe just thought there was too many bodies in front of him to get a meaningful strike towards Bart Verbruggen's goal. The Brighton goalkeeper, incidentally, still yet to be forced into a save in this game so far. In fact, the only save coming from Zion Suzuki in the early exchanges from that Donyell Marlon strike, which might be the only shot on target that we've had in this opening 28.5 minutes so far. Van Dijk going towards the left-hand side now with Van de Ven. Gakpo trying to give it back to the Tottenham man. Van de Ven into the area. Vital interception coming in from Hiroki Ito. Was looking for Crescencio Somerville making the late run into the area, but it was well dealt with. Somerville picks it up again though. Gets away from Nakamura. A 1-2 with Van Hecke before he's being tightly tracked by Daichi Kamada. Now with Denzel Dumfries, back it goes towards currently the West Ham United man. He might get a move away from the London Stadium now that West Ham were relegated to the Championship. Over towards Cody Gakpo on the left-hand side. Held up by Doan and by Sano. Tiani Reinders, poor ball, headed away. Kamada helps it on. But it goes straight back into the Dutch's path. And when Japan are sitting deep like this, yes, it's difficult for the Dutch to create that clear opening, but it's also difficult for Japan to come away with the ball because everyone is tracking back.
Everyone is tracking back. The deep ball coming in here, and Dumfries trying to keep it in play, but the header is onto the roof of the net. Better response to that. It may well be that little bit of attacking possession from Japan has just forced the Netherlands' hand into just being a little bit more direct. That ball, if a couple of yards less than that, I think Dumfries would have had a chance to do something with that one.
No, he's a very talented player from a defensive person that goes forward and scores goals. 11 international strikes so far in 73 appearances for the Inter Milan man. Ranks him second in terms of the goal-scoring defenders in the Dutch squad, behind Virgil van Dijk's 12. But even those tallies are more than every single member of the Dutch midfield in the squad, and only Wout Weghorst, Memphis Depay, Cody Gakpo and Daniel Marlin have actually scored more goals than Denzel Dumfries and Virgil van Dijk. Two very dangerous players in and around the penalty area for the Japanese to try and keep a hold of. Here is Crescencio Somerville though. The 24-year-old goes back towards Dumfries once again. Van Hecke rolling it over towards his captain Virgil van Dijk. Van de Ven 1-2 on the left with Gakpo. And plenty of possession here, the Dutch, but currently being kept at bay by Japan. The remainder of this group is at Sweden and at Tunisia. Based on that, is a point going to be good enough for them?
Well, I think it's a tough group. When you think of some of the other groups that there are, I mean, you mentioned Switzerland earlier. They always seem to fall quite kindly in terms of their draws. But that said, of course, they have a very high ranking now, making themselves one of the seeded sides. But I think from the Netherlands' point of view, they should be looking at this game saying that they need to win. And actually, ironically enough, I think Japan have got to say the same.
I mean, Sweden, granted, had a really poor qualifying campaign, finished bottom of their group with their Nations League exploits meant that they qualified into the playoffs and managed to get through at that time of asking. And Tunisia, whilst they never really ever get out of the group stages of a World Cup, they still have enough talent in their squad to really cause issues. The ball's put into the area, turned away well by Watanabe, brought down by Jose Ueda, but that is well dealt with by Frankie de Jong. The Dutch are beginning to squeeze Japan deeper inside their own half, all lurking really on the edge of their D. No Japanese player more than 30 yards out from their goal. Gakpo looking to take on Doan, looks up, wants to get a cross in, didn't really have the angle nor the space, so has to track back a little bit. Gets away from Takefusa Kubo before finding Virgil van Dijk. De Jong towards the right-hand side now in Somerville. Dumfries finds support in Marlon, tightly marked, and eventually Japan do get the interception. Kamada and his team are getting each other's way. Opportunity now for Daniel Marlon, breaking into the area. I think he was trying to put a ball back into the middle for Tiani Reinders. Well dealt with in the end by the defender in Shogo Taniguchi, but that will be a corner kick for the Dutch.
Yeah, I just wonder, that angle for Marlon, was it not open enough for him to still go for goal? I mean, he takes another touch. Once he gets past the defender, I think there was always a little bit too much of an angle there for him to try and go for goal. The defender was closing him down as well. So in the end, he does at least get the consolation of a corner here with the outswinger from Reinders.
Yeah, Reinders will look to put this ball into the area, and it would be Virgil van Dijk, Mickey van de Ven and Van Hecke and Dumfries that will be the primary targets for the Manchester City midfielder. Drops his arm puts the ball into the mixer. It's dangerous. It's saved by Suzuki. Wasn't convincing. Eventually helped out by his teammates. Attack still on though for the Dutch. The cross in, headed on by Mickey van der Ven over the bar, and Japan will breathe a heavy sigh of relief. Suzuki coming to the rescue with the save, but it wasn't a convincing stop.
No, it wasn't. No, and when you see when this ball comes in, it just seems to be coming straight at him. I mean, it's almost like he's not expecting it to come down, and then he gets his arms down, he just blocks it, and he's very fortunate there that there's no Dutch player closer to go for the rebound.
It was Jan-Paul van Hekke who was trying to get in front of, I believe it was Taniguchi in the middle, to try and tow it home from close range, but eventually the St. Truden defender was in the right position to force that ball away from danger. Here is Denzel Dumfries to bring this ball further forward. Held up, goes back towards Van Hekke. Van Dijk just inside the Japan half. Getting more of the ball now are Ronald Koeman's men. Dumfries away from Daisen Maeda. Dumfries once again finding Somerville, trying to flick it round the corner for Ryan Gravenberg. Looks like they're appealing for a handball. Don't think it's going to go their way, though. Will just be a throw-in for the Dutch on this near right-hand side. No, will actually be brought back for that free kick. Kind of a late, delayed decision there by Ismail Elthaf, but definitely an opportunity to whip a ball in here for Tiani Reinders. The big boys again going forward. Only Frankie de Jong staying back behind the ball. Needs to be a good delivery here from Tiani Reinders. Counting maybe 5-6 players in Dutch orange to aim for. Reinders raises his arm, drops it, and delivers a dangerous ball into the area. The knockdown will fall for the stretch for Cody Gakpo, who got right underneath it, sends his effort over the crossbar. Another chance goes begging.
It does go begging, and I just wonder if Gakpo just reacted instinctively to this, threw his body at it just to get anything on it, when actually he probably had another second or two to really take a touch and really measure his finish. There was no defender that close to him. As I say, it's all fine margins, it's all split seconds anyway, but he was completely off balance when he went for that one.
There's a little bit of a collision at the far post as well between Dumfries and Watanabe. It looks like Watanabe just had to take a brief moment there to compose himself. He's just retying his laces. It's not an injury stoppage, so he is back onto his feet. The Feyenoord defender making his 12th appearance for his country. Our off-tube studio fixtures focusing in on the fans in the stands. Looks like both the Dutch and the Japanese watching on are still very much in full voice and enjoying the proceedings, even though you'd probably say from a neutral perspective, not the most exciting in terms of chances.
No, in terms of chances, no, but I think there is, it's just bubbling under nicely. Certainly from the Dutch points of view, they started well, then they tailed off. Now they're finishing the half, it seems, very strongly. I'm fascinated to see, though, if there's going to be any kind of a response from Japan, because in the last 10 minutes or so, they really have been pegged back into their own half.
They have, as Van der Ven goes over to take a throw-in for the Netherlands on the far left-hand side. We have about 8 minutes remaining, plus any added-on time for stoppages in this first half. A long throw by Van der Ven is headed up and away by Watanabe. Will be another throw-in for the Dutch, for Van der Ven to take once again. Who's back towards Virgil van Dijk. We've got acres of space to bring this forward into. No Japan forward looking to try and press higher up the field. They are very rigid, keeping their shape. They're very disciplined side. Japan, they're going to be very difficult to draw out of position. De Jong to Van der Ven. Back it goes to Virgil van Dijk. Crossfield pass. Looking for Crescencio Somerville. Brings it down nicely. Held up by Nakamura. Tries to get away from the Japanese midfielder. Does well to get a cross in, but it's a poor ball that is poorly controlled by Dumfries. Hammered away by the Japan back line. We picked up by Verbruggen, actually, just outside his own area. But waste of a decent crossing position there for Somerville.
Yeah, I just wonder if Somerville was sort of in two minds as to whether he wanted to really whip that ball in or play it square. And in the end, the pass was sort of in between the two. And it was never really that well controlled by Gakpo, but it wasn't the best ball to him in the first place.
Van Hekke. Now with Van Dijk once again. Laying it back to his centre-back partner. I have to say the brightest man on the field for the Dutch so far from an attacking point of view is Donyell Marlin, but the last 10 minutes or so, he's barely been able to get involved. He's being incredibly tightly marked currently. He's almost being man-marked by Taniguchi in the Japanese defence. He's not finding any space.
Not at all. He really is. It's been a tough half for Marlon. On the few occasions when he's got the ball, he's looked like he really wants to do something, like he's really sharp. But as I say, we're clutching at straws really because he's had very little service. And so that's something that Ronald Koeman's going to have to think about, because his side are certainly seeing enough of the ball, but it's what they're doing with it that's the problem. Or not doing with it.
Yes, it's a very laboured build-up so far from the Orange as Van de Ven goes towards the left, finding Cody Gakpo, skips away from Kubo. Back it goes to Van Dijk. Side-to-side football, not really bringing themselves further forward, but now here's Denzel Dumfries. Tries to whip a cross in, well blocked by Dyson Maeda. Will be a throw-in for the Netherlands on this near right-hand side. Looks like it will be the Inter Milan man, Denzel Dumfries, that will take this, and he immediately goes backwards to Jan-Paul Van Hecke. Now with Van Dijk once again, held up by Ueda. Towards the right now in Crescencio Somerville. 1-2 with Dumfries. Now with Van Dijk. Back it goes to Van Hecke once more. Space now here for Dumfries if he can get away from Watanabe. He can't. Again, Japan refusing to be drawn out of position, making life incredibly difficult for the European giants. Gakpo to Van de Ven. Doesn't see the space to get away from Takefusa Kubo, so goes back again for Van Dijk, who's getting plenty of the ball, but really lacking the movement off him. Gravenberg, he doesn't have any play ahead of him either. You just don't see where this goal's going to come from, Paul.
From open play, it's difficult to see because the Dutch have had pretty much exclusivity in terms of that ease of possession, just moving into the final third, but they've just not been able to do anything. Now a poor ball from Van Dijk, and it may just open up for Japan.
Maeda trying to get away from Van Hecke and Dumfries, goes towards the left-hand side in Nakamura. Chance now for Japan to come forward. Nakamura gets towards the byline, digs out a cross, really poor delivery though, and I think the curve of the ball sends it out for a goal pick. I mean, the difference in the attacks at the moment, Netherlands, whenever they have the ball, it's slow, laboured build-up, biding their time and not really getting the rewards. Japan, whenever they get it and they get a little bit of space, they're immediately flooding forward to try and catch the Dutch out. And you'd probably say, despite the fact they're not getting forward as often as the Dutch, they are still looking more dangerous.
No, they are. I would say that a loss of possession in midfield for the Dutch right now could be more serious than anything that the Dutch are doing to Japan, because Japan are able to prepare for everything. It just doesn't seem to be any kind of element of surprise in what the Netherlands are doing in terms of their attacking possession. And as we tick down to the last 3 minutes before we hit injury time, it's been a tough half, I think, for the Netherlands. Ronald Koeman will have a lot to think about at half-time.
Well, there's Hiroki Ito. Goes back to Daishi Kamada, who's dropped very deep, almost in line with his centre-backs to get himself involved and start a new attack. Here comes Taniguchi to Ritsu Doan, a real danger man for Japan, but at the moment hasn't really been able to get himself involved in the attacks in this game. You obviously have to say this is going to be the hardest group game for Japan in this contest, and he'll probably get much more space against the Swedes and Tunisia in future fixtures. Kubo away from Van de Ven. Back it goes now with Kamada. Japan looking to end the half strongly. We still have about 2.5 minutes remaining of this first period. Maybe a chance here for Watanabe. He digs out a cross looking for Ueda. It eludes Somerville. Falls to Nakamura. Good effort there by the Japanese midfielder, trying to catch Verbruggen out at the near post. Well, it's knocked at the water bottle way away from Verbruggen's goal, and it only just goes wide of the mark.
Well, that same shot, if he's another yard or two into the penalty area, I think he scores. I mean, Verbruggen's diving. It may be that he makes the save anyway, but he really does put his laces through that one. Actually, saying that, he's perhaps not made the cleanest contact. He's hit that into the turf slightly. But it certainly is the cleanest effort on goal that we've seen from Japan in terms of getting close to goal. And, yeah, that might just be another worry there for the Netherlands.
And the Dutch, if they are going to come away with all 3 points in this contest, they're going to have to wake up at some point. It's being far too slow of build-up from their attack. No movement off the ball. And if this is how they're going to play for the future of this tournament, they can forget about having their hands on the trophy come July. Here comes Daichi Kamada, rolling it in to Kubo, bundled over by Frenkie de Jong. Is that a foul? No, says the referee Elfaf, but he is going to come back here because Takefusa Kubo is down on the deck. He's taken a heavy knock. I don't think he blew up for the free kick, though.
Well, maybe it looks like he has done in the end after all of that. I'm not quite sure whether the referee it has been given as a free kick. I mean, there's been a couple of those decisions in this game from our referee where he just seems to take a little pause, but now a ball into the box.
Yeah, so Ueda going for goal straight into the side netting. He was found by just one long pass, completely catching the Dutch defence out. He knew he had to hit it quickly, wouldn't have had time to take a touch. Lovely ball from Daichi Kamada. That's better from the Crystal Palace man. He gets power behind it, and if it's on target, you're not sure Verbruggen's saving it.
Yeah, he makes a good clean contact, but it's just coming off the outside of the boot slightly, so perhaps he hasn't got quite the precise accuracy that he would have wanted to there. But these are all warning signs now for the Dutch. A couple of really close efforts there for Japan in the last few minutes.
Here's Van Dijk over towards the left-hand side in Van der Ven. Back it goes now to the Dutchman in Virgil van Dijk. Holds it in for Frenkie de Jong. The left-hand side in Van der Ven. Back to de Jong. We've now passed the 45 minutes of this first half. Just the 3 added on at the end, which in modern-day football compared to olden day, that's the equivalent of just 1 minute, really, because there hasn't been many, if any, stoppages.
No, just a drinks break, that's it. That's the only really stoppage we've had, although just for sort of regular goal kicks, free kicks, and a couple of quick discussions the referees had, he probably could have another couple of minutes onto that. But it may well be that the officials aren't too impressed with the attacking play in this first half either, so they want to see an end to it.
Yes, there'll have to be some hair-dry treatments in the half-time interval, in particular for Ronald Koeman. I think Hajime Moriyasu will be relatively happy to come away with a point.
Just looking at the bench, I mean, there's certainly plenty of attacking options for the Dutch. They've got Brobby, they've got Depay, they've got Kluivert. So they're Koop Miners as well. So there's certainly no shortage of options. It's just whether or not Koeman wants to make personnel changes or indeed whether he feels it needs to be a system change as well.
Yes, of course, but they've got a free kick which they've taken quickly over towards the left-hand side now in Cody Gakpo. Can they have one final chance at the end of this half? They're beginning to move the ball a tad quicker as Gravenberch finds Van der Ven. Now with Donyell Marlin on the edge. A little drop of the shoulder, tries to get away from Ritsu Doan. Holds on to possession, digs out a dangerous cross. Diverted away by Taniguchi. Van Dijk puts it in towards Frenkie de Jong. About a minute and a half to go. De Jong towards the right-hand side in Somerville. 2 or 3 players to aim for in the middle. Won't put the cross in, said holds off Daisen Maeda. Force backwards to Van Dijk. Left-hand side in Cody Gakpo. Away from Doan and Kubo. Van der Ven to de Jong once more. Japan have all their players back to frustrate the Dutch, and at the moment they're doing well to keep them outside the penalty area as Somerville is tightly marked by Ito. Lovely skill by Jan-Paul van Hecker of all people, and then his pass is blocked by Nakamura. Corner kick with a minute to go.
Well, for all these attacking players that the Dutch have, it needed a big, strong centre-back to join the attacking third and actually get that deflection to win his side the corner kick. And with under a minute of the added time to go, this may be one of the last chances of the first half.
Yes, it will be one of the final opportunities. Tiani Reinders will be the man that will take it. Somerville in support nearby. Van Hecker, Dumfries, Van Dijk, Gakpo, Van der Ven, Marlin all in the area to aim for. Ryan Gravenberch laying in wait on the edge should the ball find its way to him. This might be the final attack of this half. It will be Tiani Reinders that whips it in. It's a decent delivery. The header does come in. Couldn't get the clean contact there. Donyell Marlin straight down the throat of Zion Suzuki.
Yeah, too easy for the goalkeeper. Good positioning there from Marlin, but effectively all he was doing was redirecting the cross. He wasn't really putting any of his own power into it, which made it a lot easier for the goalkeeper.
Ito goes towards Nakamura, and that is going to be that for the first half. We're going into the break at the Dallas Stadium. It's Netherlands 0, Japan 0, and we'll see you in the second half.